Senator, it is good to have you with us. What did you hear from the Prime Minister? How much time do you think we have to turn this around?
We got to get going right away. I mean, there's two things. One, Canada is astonished, both at the emotional insult of the 51st state talk, but also the practical impact of these tariffs and how we've been great trading partners and really close allies. And suddenly, President Trump's made a decision to challenge that. What they are fortunately intending to do is cooperate as much as possible, but it's also clear that they don't necessarily have confidence in the follow-through of Trump, and they don't feel that they can really count on him, so they're going to take independent actions as well as trying to do as much as they possibly can to maintain their relationship with us. And our message to them, bipartisan, led by Senator Shaheen and Senator Kramer, who has a very close relationship with Trump, is we love Canada. That relationship is important to us economically. It's really important. Vermont, it's our biggest trading partner, but that's true for 34 states. So it's important that we stay together.
Senator, to your important point about the relationship, it's not just an economic one, it's also the national security interest that we share with Canada. So to your point, that relationship matters on a lot of levels. You referenced your colleague, Senator Kramer, who was the only Republican on the trip. He noted that I don't want to get in Donald Trump's way, but at the same time, I want to be an encourager to Canada and their officials and try to be a partner in some way. Hopefully, I navigated it okay, but I'll find out on Truth Social. That to me is the disturbing part of this. You know, we cannot have an honest relationship with our partners to the north because of the fickleness of the guy who's sitting in the Oval Office and the concern that senators like Kramer, who co-chairs the Canada-U.S. Parliamentary Group in Congress, know the importance of those relationships. How do you navigate this space when you have such a bad actor or not a good faith actor in the president when you're having these conversations with your Canadian counterparts and ministers and leaders trying to, as you started at the beginning, make this relationship work?
Well, two things. One, you identified exactly what the Canadian dilemma is. They thought they could take for granted a very cordial, very open relationship with the United States. And obviously, President Trump shattered that with his decisions, not just the emotional insults, but also the tariffs that are very damaging to our biggest trading partner. But second, from our perspective, we've got to remind Canada by showing up in person, and it was incredibly helpful to have Senator Kramer there, that the vast majority of Americans want to maintain those personal ties that we have to Canada and our trading relationship. And one of the things that Senator Kramer said that we all agreed with, Canada is our ally. You know, President Trump's challenging that. But we have they're not our adversary. Our common adversary is China. And in fact, Canada imposed very severe tariffs on China about steel and aluminum. So they've been stepping up to assist us in our challenge with China.
You know, I do think it's important to note that the president did post on Truth Social. Senator Kramer was had some foresight into that, I guess. And he said that he claimed that Canada is considering the offer to become the 51st state and be part of the Golden Dome system. I will now hold my breath. Can we switch to tariffs while we have you? Because Japan, there's all these things happening. Japan is talking about spending $6.3 billion to shield its economy from Donald Trump's tariffs. This was out today. Spain unveiled a $15 billion tariff aid package last month. And then you have the president of the United States last week saying that Apple has to make their iPhones in America. And not only Apple, he went on to say it wouldn't just be Apple products, it would be all phones because it, quote unquote, wouldn't be fair. And Axios has reporting that notes, and this is from an equity research analyst, for U.S. consumers, the reality of a $1,000 iPhone being one of the best-made consumer products on the planet would disappear. Making iPhones in New Jersey or Texas or another state would boost their price tag to about $3,500 instead. It is, please, because people are going to say I'm being dramatic. It is not realistic for iPhones or Samsung phones be made in America?
Well, you're exactly right. The iPhones will be the biggest tax on consumers in generations. That's a fact. And it will undercut our trade relationships and the strength of our economy. Targeted tariffs, where you've got dumping by China, I think a lot of us are totally open to that. But tariffs against your friends, when it's going to essentially be a tax on consumers and it's unraveling relationships that we need in order to be pushing back against China, make no sense. And in fact, the other aspect of this that I think is very dangerous is it plays into the corruption agenda of Trump, because these tariffs are not uniform. If you know Scott Bessent, you have his phone number, or the president's phone number, you give him a call like Apple did early on, and you get exempt from the tariffs. But if you're a small manufacturer of these water bottles, like the Vermont firm that was in the Times today, you're out of luck. So Trump is turning the economy into one that's based on who you know, access, as opposed to a competitive product, a competitive price, and good service.
So when you are not traveling the globe, giving a reassurance tour to foreign leaders over whether or not they can, in fact, trust their allyship with the United States, you are preparing to deal with Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. Your colleague, Senator Ron Johnson, says he has enough support to hold up the budget bill, essentially wants to go through it line by line and look for additional cuts. You leave Ron Johnson alone in a room with this bill, doing a line edit. What more of our social safety net gets cut?
Well, he cut everything he could get his hands on. But there's an element of Ron Johnson and Rand Paul that actually I have some sympathy with. This bill will not help our economy. It'll hurt it, and it will explode our deficit. It's going to take money from people who need it and from our institutions that need it. It's going to give tax cuts to billionaires who don't need those tax cuts. And what's really happening now that's extremely dangerous, it's pushing up interest rates. The bond market is in revolt. That means your credit card bills are higher. If you want to borrow money for a car, it's higher. And we're now already paying more for the national debt service than we do on Medicare, more than we pay for the military. So this is an economically really bad bill, and I think we should just kill it.